excited to partner with you to, first really develop a plan for success, and then obviously execute on that plan with you in terms of training, coaching, to really ensure successful implementation. My name's Aaron Seaver. I'm the Director of Sales for Texas here. And with me today is Andrew Senkar, who is our Partner Success Manager, and Susanna Spina, our early childhood subject matter expert. So Susanna's going to take you through kind of an example of a plan that we have used in several districts across the state and across the country that have ended up in successful implementation. I will post my contact information in the chat, so you can reach out to me directly to begin this process when you're ready. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Susanna.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for being with us. I'm going to share my screen so we can look at this professional learning plan together. Can you see that all right, Aaron? Good. Let me minimize the Zoom screen so I can actually see it too. Wonderful. Thanks for having us. I know that Aaron said this is an example of a professional learning plan, because what we really want to do is sit down and talk with you to create that professional learning plan specific for your program. So what are the needs of your educators right now? What are the needs of your children right now based on data, based on what we know from the past? So again, this is one example, and it might be that this example works perfectly for your program. If not, we'd love to sit down with you and have that conversation. So when you are looking for, when you implement teaching strategy solutions, we like to provide what we call just-in-time training, not just in case training, right? So many times we will have August, a few days maybe before educators go back and children come to school. And we know that at that time, they have a lot of information happening. They have a lot going on and a lot of demands on them to be able to start the school year out well. And so what we like to do is break up our training so that they understand not just the solution and how to use it, the curriculum. We want them to have that foundational knowledge. Here we see that teachers and coaches, with that foundational knowledge, with the why behind, with the pedagogy that comes with a project-based solution, a whole child inquiry-led solution, it is easier to have them understand the now what. If you understand the why, the now what is always an easier step to take, right? So what this looks like, we have our session 1, which is getting started with teaching strategies for pre-kindergarten. This can be 6 hours straight through in person, or if you needed to divide it up into 2 3-hour sessions or 3 2-hour sessions, those may have to be virtual. But we look at doing that either spring, summer, or early fall, depending again on when you're looking to implement. Before obviously the children arrive, we're looking to do this. And this is for all teachers, administrators, and coaches. This specific training of getting started walks us through not just the components of the curriculum. We know that educators want to feel equipped to walk in and begin using it. What does my day-to-day look like? How do I start planning lessons? How do I start? But we also take some time to go through some of our foundational volumes. So what's wonderful about teaching strategies is we're not just a solution-based company. We began as a research company 40 years ago. And we found that as we collected this research on how children develop appropriately, or how they develop, and how we get our biggest bang for our buck in those early years, we realized that there is no curriculum that really matches what children need. And that's when we began writing curriculum to meet those needs based on the research and data that we had collected. So we do talk a little bit about in the first professional learning day about that foundation. So there are 6 foundations that come with every solution that talk about the pedagogy, talk about the interest areas, what most people still call centers. Talk about how do I get math and literacy into my interest areas? How do I teach those all in a solution that is cross-curricular, right? Because with early childhood, there's not a time where we're just teaching one subject. We know that social emotional, those social studies are going throughout the day, as well as when we're playing with blocks, we're using that math. We're providing them writing materials so that they're also drawing and writing in the math, in the block interest area. So this talks a little bit about the why, the foundation behind it, the best practices, and then we obviously go through all of the daily resources that come with the curriculum so teachers, educators feel well equipped to begin their school year. When we go on into session 2, so we'll give usually maybe 4 weeks in between, because again, if we talk about assessment and talk about the 3rd session, responsive planning, all in the 1st session, we have found that that is not just in time. There's only so much that we can hold in, only so much knowledge. So when we come back on assessment, it's usually maybe 4 or 5 weeks into the school year. And that's where we really show them and our solution embedded assessment, which is GOLD. And GOLD, again, is a commissioner approved assessment to use for ECDS reporting. So it's a lot of districts enjoy it, not just because they're able to use that for reporting, but it's truly an assessment that when using the Creative Curriculum Cloud, the online portion, you are able to enter data and it will inform your instruction for the following day. So truly that formative assessment happens on a daily basis with GOLD, as well as that summative. We have our checkpoints and the ability to turn in those reports for ECDS. So this specific day, professional learning day, would look like really talking about objective anecdotal notes. What type of data am I looking for? Because the same way we have to plan for our lessons, we have to plan for what data do I need to collect. So taking those anecdotal notes, entering the assessment data, and then kind of what does that assessment tell us, right? So once we have teachers entering data, collecting the data, we come back a few weeks later, a month, 6 weeks later, and talk about responsive planning. This responsive planning is not just meeting the needs of children, but also of families. So let's talk about the children first. And what we do is really look at, okay, now we have taken this data. What do we do with it, right? We don't like taking data just for the sake of taking it. What do we do with this? And we talk about our responsive planning cycle. So you observe based on what we taught in session 2, you're doing those observations. You're going to reflect on what does this observation tell me specifically about this child? And then you respond. How do I scaffold? How do I differentiate my instruction to make sure that I'm meeting the needs of this child as well as all the other children in my classroom? And then the cycle begins again. Now that I've changed my instruction, I observe, I reflect, and I respond. Now, we know that that cycle with the children is what gets them to grow the fastest when we're really giving them the instruction that they need at the level that they need it. We also continue to do this with families. We know that we need to partner with families. And when we do, that's where we see the most growth in children, where we're all moving the same way. So many of you are familiar with Ready Rosie. We also have another solution, Marco Polo, that can be used in the home. We have our family app, which is in the Creative Curriculum Cloud. And this creates that two-way communication that really helps educators and families know, where is my child right now? How can I continue to help him or her grow at home, at school? And sometimes we see that children will show progress or show a skill at home that they're not showing at school, or vice versa. So with this family app, with Ready Rosie, you are able as an educator to take any data that families share with you and upload it directly into Gold as well, taking the data on that skill, specific skill for students. So responsive planning also means that we need to be looking as educators on my daily schedule. Do I need to be strengthening transitions? Look at the whole program right now, specifically those things that with tiny little tweaks, my learning environment. Am I making sure that my classroom, we know the classroom is the silent teacher. Am I making sure that my classroom is set up where students can truly be self-led learners and getting as much as possible? So we talk about that usually fall, still winter, and then session 4, again, this is an example, but we come back usually before the holiday break and talk about in-depth investigations to support learning. So educators are usually at this point about 2-3 months into using the curriculum. They have usually completed maybe 1 or 2 studies, because our first unit is not a study. The first 6 weeks is really about creating your classroom community. So when you think about the social emotional skills, the social studies skills, how do I make and keep friends? How do I take care of my classroom materials? Educators are going into the interest areas and making decisions with children about how many do we think are able to play in this area effectively. And that's how we're making these decisions. So we're creating a classroom community before we start the investigations. So usually about 2 to 3 months in, they have done 1, maybe 2 investigations and really have that knowledge base now to be able to ask the questions of, okay, in my last study, these are some of the things that happened. These are some of the things that I would like to change. How do I do those? And this session, this professional learning day, really looks like right here what it says: children learn through play, authentic experience are the most important, but what does that mean? So we talked to educators about involving families, having families send in even items from their home, like what do the children have in their kitchen? And is what we have in our dramatic play representative of what they have in their kitchens at home? Do I have boxes, cans, materials that the children would see in their kitchens at home? And then allowing really that family to be able to help with these investigations by sending in, if they're on the boxes unit, send in boxes that you have at home. If you're in the gardening unit, send in things that we find outside, as well as what's in their community. So we talk and evaluate family involvement in learning and discuss again the tools to increase family engagement. In the spring, after we usually have at least 2 checkpoints of data to inform us, we talk about fidelity. And this again is not just data to inform our instruction, but it's data to have that self-reflection, as well as what do I need to grow in professionally? Where do I need to continue my learning? And this is where it really begins to individualize the educator experience, because what happens? We know that we have veteran teachers, we have brand new teachers, we have teachers that have come from upper grade levels, teachers that have never taught a day before. And so this will really help us be able to identify what, with that self-reflection, what are you open to continuing growth with? There's a fidelity tool teacher checklist. And we love, again, for administrators, coaches, all to be involved in this, in all professional learning days, specifically this one, because this is really where the teachers are looking at this teacher checklist, and they are now in the spring usually have the capacity or the bandwidth to be able to take a step back and say, okay, in the first 5 months, 5 months usually, that we have implemented this. I feel good about this. I need to learn more about this. I need to change these things. And, we can create individualized professional learning plans specific for those teachers. I'm going to show you in a little bit our online professional learning in our creative curriculum cloud that will be used in session 5 as well as earlier. We have ongoing coaching. So this day here could be 6 hours, or 2 days, 12 hours, where we work with those administrators and coaches and teach them really how to use this coaching, coaching teachers to fidelity of implementation. So the fidelity tool. We will train them on how to use that, talk about all of the, not just, there are several parts in this book that talk about the learning environment. We talk about those teacher, student, children interactions, the structure of the day, families, and our assessment. Then what we have seen has been most effective is really doing that side-by-side coaching with the administrators and coaches if you have the if you have coaches. And we will come out and actually do the fidelity checklist with those administrators or coaches in classrooms. So we'll go out, fill this out, work with and coach your coaches on how to get your teachers up to higher fidelity. One of the things that we say all the time is it really takes a program 2 to 3 years to get to high fidelity with our curriculum. But we've seen it go even faster when we use this fidelity of implementation tool and coaching, that side-by-side coaching with administrators and or coaches. So again, I want to reiterate, this is one example. We know that every program has different needs, just like every child does. So we'd love to sit with you and create that professional learning plan. Something else that I wanted to mention is we have in our creative curriculum cloud, we have, let me change new share. Here we go. Okay, so when you first log into My Teaching Strategies, you will see the tabs at the top. And one of the benefits of using this solution is that here in Develop, there is online professional learning that can be done at any time. This is self-paced. There are knowledge checks throughout. And when completed, educators can turn in certificates if that's something that administrators require. But we usually, when sitting down and creating that learning plan with programs, some want a playlist. So what happens? We will maybe do or require staff for flex hours if they do getting to know the creative curriculum for Texas or introducing My Teaching Strategies. Those are 2-hour courses. And if you see here, it doesn't need to all be done in one sitting. So it's broken up into 2 modules and each tutorial is 20 minutes. So you can do 20 minutes, or I mean, you can even do 10 minutes of this first tutorial, walk away, come back, log back in. It'll say, would you like to continue where you left off? And then the second module has 4 20-minute tutorials. So again, very doable. And then when completed, this can be turned in, but some districts will have their staff educators do some of these to get that basic knowledge before we come in on day 1 and do that professional learning day with them. There are some programs that use this specifically after administrators have gone out, done t-tests, done some evaluations, and we see an area of growth for an educator. We may be able to go in here and say, as part of your plan, I would like for you to go through the objectives for development and learning and maybe just specifically literacy. Maybe that's where I saw a gap in the classroom, and they can go through and do this what is this, 5, 10, 20, 40, 50, 55-minute module on literacy. If they do not do the whole course, they won't be able to print a certificate. But the good thing is that administrators, who you can make coaches can be administrators, it depends on who you want to be an administrator, can pull a report that shows where their educators are on their online professional development. So if you go into this report, it'll show, obviously mine is not a real campus, but it would show your learner progress. I have no teachers under me, no educators, but it would show their name, in progress or completed, and then what credits are earned there. So our online professional learning courses, oh, I do have some, here we go. Those are very useful in those in between. So in between our learning days with the programs, we oftentimes will recommend before the assessment, for example, gold introduction, so that they have a little bit of a base. And then when we are there, we really get our hands into it and are able to answer those specific questions and get to a higher level of understanding. We have everything gold for administrators. So that also is something that coaches, administrators can take. Transforming family engagement. What does that really look like? This one is specific to the cloud, our online portion, which is amazing. Elevating practice and partnerships with the Creative Curriculum Cloud. We even have Ready Rosie, many of you are familiar with. Celebrating best practices and supporting dual language learners. As well as up here, using positive guidance for inclusive collaborative classrooms. I know that some of our models, classroom models, have changed here recently, and sometimes, sometimes there's a struggle. If we have co-teachers in the same class, how does that look? What do I do when I have students with special needs coming in, but really how to include not just students with special needs, but all diversity. We talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion a lot throughout our curriculum. So I think that is all on the online professional learning. We would just love to have the opportunity to sit with you, create our professional learning plan that is specific for your program, for your educator and children needs. What questions do we have? Or Erin, Drew, have I forgotten anything?
No, I don't think so. I'm going to post my contact information in the chat.